Hi everyone, welcome to another audio episode of this YouTube channel. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This isn't how I normally do things, but it's kind of just how the situation is right now. But I did want to talk about the recent movie that came out from Marvel. You may have heard of it. It's the first female movie to come out of Marvel. We're not counting Captain Marvel. If you want to know my opinion on Captain Marvel, you can check out the review that I have up on my channel. It's up in the cards. But other than that, let's get started with this movie review on Black Widow, which is something I was really excited for. I was actually very anticipatory towards this movie, and I really wanted to like it a lot. I wanted it to be great. I wanted it to be amazing and like everything that I think it would be. For those of you who are new to this channel, welcome. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button if you want to know more about movies, movie analytics, and my reactions to the movie trailers that come out every couple weeks. We have a lot of fun, so I hope you join the scene. If you've been on my channel for a while, you kind of know how things play out. I talk about the positive things first and the negatives afterwards, but before I do all of that, let's do a brief recap of Black Widow and the plot of it itself if you haven't watched already. This movie review is completely non-spoiler, so I won't be spoiling any of the movie's contents. None of the major plot points will be ruined for you. You'll just get an insight on what I think about the movie as a whole. Black Widow is directed by Kate Shortland, which is Kate with a C. Natasha Romanoff, also known as Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. This movie stars Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, and Ray Winstone, along with a lot of other people, but those are the main headliners. Here's kind of what I thought of the movie overall. Overall, I thought this movie wasn't amazing, but I didn't think it was that bad either. It was a really enjoyable experience to watch in the theaters. I'm really happy that I saw it in theaters rather than on streaming. It's something about being in the movie theater that really makes you hone in on everything that happens, and it makes it more entertaining of an experience. I really enjoyed this movie when I watched it. I came out of the theater feeling relatively okay. I didn't hated the movie, but I didn't, I had a good time and it was fun with the friends that I went with. Now, let's get into the positives and negatives of this review and start off with the positives. Some good things about this movie is that I really did enjoy the beginning of this movie. Everything from the first moment that a character appeared on screen to the opening title sequence, I really enjoyed that setup. I enjoyed a lot of the everyday moments that happen in superheroes' lives and just seeing Natasha just kind of be on her own. I really enjoyed seeing her as a standalone character and making sure that she didn't need anybody else on screen with her to make her an enjoyable watch. She is a very compelling character in general. It's really fun to see that blossom on screen and be able to experience it with a bunch of other people in the same room. I think if this movie was released in 2014, like it could have been released, I think it would have been a really good watch and a very different movie, but still, something that we all really wanted. A lot of this movie is a very fan-based requests, if I could say that. A lot of it is really cool and very fun, and then also you get all the stuff that you want from the Black Widow past. I will also say that this movie did take itself seriously and did it well. Like, it didn't take itself too seriously, but it made itself like an actual movie instead of making it super satirical or very comedic or taking itself way too seriously and making everything so dramatic. Florence Pugh in this movie is an absolutely incredible actress. I was very compelled by all of her scenes. She had arguably the best scenes in this entire movie. Her acting and character is just very compelling. It's something that I really resonated with and it hit home for me. I really enjoyed her character and how she put it on and how she didn't, over-exaggerate things, but she didn't, make things too cheesy or very comedic in the sense of just making light of situations that weren't to make light of. The whole situation that these girls went through, which I won't spoil because this is a non-spoiler review, but the situation they went through wasn't the most ideal. It's nothing that any young person wants to go through. And so there's that. I think Florence Pugh did an amazing job, and I loved all of her performances in this. I've really liked her in a lot of the movies that I've seen her in, and so this wasn't any different from any of her other performances. She did a fantastic job, and really she held her own in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which honestly, it's really hard for a woman to do that when they're first being introduced. Say for instance Darcy, nobody really loved her until the second Thor movie, something like that, and Florence Pugh just right out of the gate hit the ground running and is making a name for herself in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and across audiences worldwide. Overall, I did really enjoy this movie as a consumer. I really was very entertained by it. Before I move on to the next portion of this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you really like what I've said. Also, like this video so that I know that I can make more content like this. And if you really like what I'm saying, go ahead and hit the bell notification icon so you're one of the first people to know when I upload a new video. If you want to check out one of my other videos, I did do a trailer reaction to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings full trailer just a couple weeks ago. So if you want to check that out, you can go ahead and hit the link in the cards up above. Also in the description box down below, there'll be a link for that as well. Alright, let's get started with the negative parts of this review, and I don't mean negative as in like this movie is horrible and here's all the reasons why. These are just the negative parts of this review that I didn't like about the movie, the stuff that I didn't really think worked very well in this movie. Again, I won't be spoiling anything for any of the movie, so if you watch the movie after watching this review, nothing will be spoiled for you. That being said, this movie answers a lot of questions that don't really need answering. They do answer the big question. This whole movie is centered around Natasha's past and the whole reason why she became the Black Widow and became an Avenger and an agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a really big question that gets answered, which is great, but this movie answers a lot of questions that we didn't need answering. If you want to know more about that, you can comment down below and I can tell you with a spoiler warning, but that's really not important to this review. This movie is not really a movie for comic book fans. When I say that, I mean that if you read any of the comics for what this movie is based off of, you won't really love what they did with any of the characters. I know a lot of people who were comic book fans when these comics first came out. They have collections, they have the actual physical copies of these comic books. It's just not what the comics are portraying. It's not even like an sample of what they're portraying. They completely change a lot of things in this movie that are really not meant to be changed. I don't mind adding characters for the sake of a political purpose, but if you have to change a character for a target demographic audience, then that's a little bit suspicious if you're asking me. That's something that this movie really does a lot of and takes a lot of liberties doing, and it just doesn't really work. There's this whole twist with the antagonist of this movie, which doesn't really pay off as well as they wanted it to. They also did it with the intention of fulfilling an audience requirement and like appealing to this specific audience, but in actuality you've lost your audience. You've lost the main audience that you actually want, which is the comic book fans. Because Marvel has gotten so big, they're really appealing to a larger amount of audiences, and this started way back, but one of the movies that really hit home for a lot of people was Black Panther, and that really set a revolution in place for all African American cast movies, which are great, and I'm so happy for them. But at the same time, if you're changing characters for the purpose of hitting one of those audiences and making sure that all of your content is somehow consistent for an entire movie, I really don't think that's the best thing. They take one of the best villains in the entire Marvel comic world and they turn the villain into something different. I won't spoil it for you. What they do with that villain is kind of just not the way that villain was meant to be told. That villain's story is not really the way that they're making it out to be. There's also a lot of dialogue scenes that happen that just seem very forced. I really don't think that this movie was very well written as much as it could have been. If this movie came out in place of Captain Marvel before Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, I forget which one she came out with because I don't really care about that movie, but if this movie came out before Captain Marvel, like in that slot, I think this movie would have done fantastic and it would have made more sense. Like, we don't have anything to really work with here. We just introduced a couple of characters and answered some questions from the past, which isn't a very good movie. For a standalone superhero comic book movie, that's not very good if you don't really add anything to a story in general. And because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is so vast and so big now, it's just hard to really progress a story more than what it is right now. With that, we're gonna wrap up this review and ask you guys, what did you think about this movie if you have seen it, or if you haven't seen it, what are you suggesting that is going to happen going into this movie if you're going to watch it? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a great random day. This was supposed to come out Thursday of last week, and I just didn't have the energy to film this review. I'm sorry. But anyways, have a great random Tuesday, and I will see you guys on the other side of the screen.